Thank you, Senator Ward. We welcome you today as our guest. Good to see you. Okay, Senate Judiciary is now in session. We're going to hear from the Honorable Representative Barry on, I'm sorry, I don't have a good voice today, on HB 514. Welcome, Representative.
Oh, it's all right. It's not the first time I've been called that.
Field promotion.
My name is Representative Ross Berry. I represent the towns of Goffstown and Ware in Hillsborough 44. I'm here today to introduce House Bill 514, allowing private persons to sue for violations of elections law. I know it's kind of strange why you guys are here, but this arises out of a concern that was discovered from RSA 659, which this committee wouldn't handle. So RSA 659 is election procedures, and it contains a various amounts. It's actually one of the longest sections of New Hampshire of election law, and it contains various things such as electioneering by public employees, ballot access. And what was discovered via a lawsuit was that there's the last line in RSA 659, which is 104, I believe, just to verify. 104 talks about the Attorney General being the person that brings civil penalties forward. And the problem is the courts have interpreted that to mean that only the Attorney General can bring forward lawsuits regarding 659. And that's an issue because there's a lot of stuff in 659. And so what I did was I tried to create a framework to allow private persons to sue for violations of election procedures while not opening the floodgates. So the first thing is the current procedure stays in place, which is if you have an issue, you got to go to the DOJ and file a complaint. The DOJ has 5 days to respond. And if they respond in a way that you're satisfactory with, we're just done. So I wanted to kind of keep the DOJ as the first line of defense towards an issue. The only caveat to that is if you're within 15 days of an election, you can go straight to the courts. The other thing that this does is it maintains these qualified immunity, because we don't want people who are being election officials being afraid of losing their home or something like that. That's unreasonable. And it also limits the attorney's fees so that we don't have a bunch of attorneys going around trying to make a quick buck by encouraging people to sue over election law. The concern of that was raised in the Election Law Committee where this bill was originally heard in the House. And they said, well, you're violating somebody's rights by limiting what the attorney can charge. And my retort to that was, well, currently the attorney can charge nothing because the courts have said you can't sue. So that was that. It is a very long bill, but I'm happy to answer any questions about it. But that was the intent of the framework to set up, and that was the problem we were trying to address.
I just have a couple questions for you. So the bill, and just deal with my voice, sorry. The bill requires the AG to investigate right within 5 or 15 days. But if they do this investigation, then they had to turn it over to the requesting party. Wouldn't that information contain stuff about the different things that need to be redacted, private information about the party? Yeah, it would be the information that would go back to the requesting person. The AG investigates. They might know your criminal record. God knows what they might not know and stuff, but it would be private information that shouldn't be given out to someone just requesting because they had an election problem.
I'm trying to find where in that you're getting that, Senator. I'm not saying it's not there. Admittedly, it's been a while since I've handled this bill, so I apologize. I did read it this morning, but
I read it a couple days ago, so I'm going to be slower.
obviously that would be a concern.
It would be background information you'd be getting on the person you requested information. There could be AG does their report. There could be you'd be interfering also possibly with prosecutorial, I'm sorry, I can't speak well, discretion of the AG if you let this out. So I see problems with information being released that the AG may not have the right to give out this private information about people.
As to I'll answer the second part of that because I don't think we found the language that you're referring to, but the part about prosecutorial discretion is exactly why I filed the bill. So if one person at the Department of Justice decides that your rights are not being violated, that should not be the end of the conversation for you. I fully believe that you have a right to seek redress with your government, specifically through the court system. And the fact that we have such an important part of election law is sealed off to that only the DOJ can go after it, when it includes your right to vote, it just seems very off. And I'm trying to fix that problem. So your point about prosecutorial discretion is exactly why I filed the bill.
Are you aware of the limitations of the Attorney General's office as far as normally if they did this, they'd have like up to 6 months? I understand in an exigent circumstance, like an election, the 15, the 5 days of the 15. But part of the problem with a bill like this is the AG is not going to have the capacity. So it's going to be financially a big reach.
I understand that. So, and when it comes to an election, the problem is elections have a definitive period of action, right? So to your point about 6 months, let's say I'm denied the right to register to vote on election day. I don't have 6 months. I have today, right? So that's to your point, that is another reason why you need to be able to seek redress through the court system is the election is happening on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. It doesn't matter if the issue arose a week before the election. You don't have time for a 6-month investigation. You're operating underneath a confined window. The lawsuit that I'm referring to came from an electioneering complaint against public employees, where the AG in the court case, the defendants, the public employees, their attorney actually admitted to the crime that they were accused of. They actually admitted that they had developed a survey that was intended to change an electoral outcome, which is the definition of electioneering by RSA 659-44A. The problem was their attorney then said, but it doesn't matter because the litigants have no right to bring a lawsuit forward because of RSA 659-104. So in this situation that I'm trying to address, you have the defendants actually admitting to the crime in which they were accused of by private litigants, admitting to it, and then not being held to account because only the AG can bring forward the case, and the AG in this case opted not to do that. It's a complicated problem.
Other questions? I'm not aware that they're coming to speak. No, I don't think so. I do not. No.
Yeah.
Other questions?
And just if I can further expound on that, the quote that their attorney used was, Your Honor, even if you were to find in ruling of the plaintiff, your opinion would be merely advisory. And the judge agreed with that.
With what you just were, did you mention standing problems in the last minute or two? Did you have a problem with standing?
It's a standing issue because of RSA 659-104, no private person can have standing to sue over 659. So I'm trying to create the standing to allow for the lawsuit while simultaneously not opening the floodgates for endless lawsuits.
I understand what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Okay.
Rep Horgan, come on down. How you doing today, sir? Good.
I'm Representative Timothy Horgan from Stratford County District 6. I'm a member of your counterpart committee on the other side of the wall, House Judiciary. However, we did not see this bill, and I'm not necessarily sure I would have been a majority if this bill had come to my committee. I mean, I think the whole idea, I think, of this is unwise. I believe it probably would open the floodgates, even though the sponsor, made a case that it wouldn't. And I'm not sure why it's needed. If there's a criminal violation, there's a division of the Department of Justice which set up to deal with election law violations. I found them to be very responsive. There's also the Ballot Law Commission. If there's some irregularity in how the election was, like say how the votes were counted, how the election was carried out. So that already exists. So I don't know what purpose this process serves. It's going to be a burden on the Department of Justice, even though I know what the rationale for it is. If you have to drop everything and reply to this in 5 days and report back in 15 days. They're understaffed. They've got a lot of work to do. It's that they may have to put aside, they'll have to put aside other matters to deal with these election law complaints. And these election law complaints can be just about anything. I can even imagine situations where both sides have complaints. So, and I'll underline 3 things, specific things that are wrong with the way this bill is worded. First of all, on page 1, lines 10 and 11, subparagraph read the definitions. It includes political subdivisions among the persons, and political subdivisions, I'm not sure if they're legally considered persons. Only government agencies are not considered persons, so that probably needs to be reworded. Although the definition of political subdivision looks good at first glance, I'm not sure. I think they cover just about everything there. And so the part about attorney's fees, that could be potentially unconstitutional. So I'm not sure what standing you have to prevent. And if a plaintiff is willing to hire an attorney and the attorney is willing to accept payment for it, I don't exactly know how we prevent the plaintiff and the attorney from proceeding with the case with a payment from the plaintiff to the attorney. That seems to deny the potential plaintiffs the right to counsel. So so anyway, I just think this is I think this bill is unnecessary. It's a bad bill, so I would just recommend you to ITL it. And if you do hold on to it, it's probably going to need a significant rewrite, which nothing was amended. Nothing was amended in the House, even though, at least in my opinion, this looked like something that could use some amendments, even if it was a good idea. But as I said, I think it's a bad idea, so you should just kill it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Sarah Burke? Good afternoon, Ms. Burke.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Burke Cohen. I represent the New Hampshire Municipal Code Association. I am going to keep this brief because I have written testimony that I will defer to. The NHMA opposes this bill because we feel like it's there's a lot of ambiguity to it. Representative Horgan just stated it appears that potentially individual private rights of action could be brought against municipalities, but it also appears that private rights of actions could be brought by municipalities against the state, which seems a little bit out of the norm. We also have concerns about the language relative to attorney's fees. It seems to get in the way of violating contract law, essentially, and telling attorneys what they can and can't charge a client. But in generally, we feel like this would open the floodgates. As much as Representative Barry says that it would not, we feel like this could open the floodgates to vexatious complaints that right now the Attorney General's office serves as a gatekeeper to ensure those complaints aren't flooding the system. I'll take questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Henry. Hillsborough 29, Henry. Guide, I'll get that down. I like the hat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Honorable Committee. For record, Representative Henry Geis in Hillsborough 29th District. One thing I like to remind the body all the time is the first duty of this body is to protect the rights of the people, and the people have the right to privacy, and the people have the right to a vote that is not tampered with by the taxpayers. I've seen in my district an invasion of privacy from a government agency releasing information for the express intent of changing an election that was published by a private civilian. That person then had to put a security system on their house at their own expense after threats. The cost of candidacy can be high, especially for a new applicant who is filing for the first time and doesn't understand the fundraising things that more senior legislators understand. So I would be in favor of this because in a complaint with the AG, and I watched this whole process in the case that that representative that introduced the bill mentioned, the AG was responsible, but the AG didn't make a decision. In fact, after the election, the AG still did not make a decision. I personally believe it might be because the people in question won the election, but had they not, there is no discourse if the civil court throws it out. And if it's confirmed that damage was done by illegal electioneering by government officials, that won't overturn an election. They're not going to rerun an election. There should be repercussions for the government using taxpayer funding to interfere with the people's election. And right now, there may be a law in the books that says that you can't, but I've seen 3 times now it happen in less than 2 years with no repercussions. So right now, there's not a clear enforcement mechanism that protects the people's election from interference of government officials.
All set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kaylee from Open Democracy. I could have given it a shot, Kaylee, but I probably would have butchered it, so. But you can get it right.
Yeah, it's Abstradio, pretty phonetic.
Okay.
So good morning, Chairman, or good afternoon now, Chairman Gannon, and members of the Honorable Senate Judiciary Committee. My name is Kaylee Abstradio. I am a Durham voter and current public policy fellow with Open Democracy. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit organization representing 36,000 voters across the state of New Hampshire, and I'm submitting testimony today in opposition to HB 514. As we have mentioned before, the responsibility for enforcing election law appropriately rests with the Attorney General. These institutions are equipped to investigate and prosecute such matters impartially and with legal expertise. Shifting this authority to private citizens invites a wave of frivolous and most likely politically motivated lawsuits that would clog our courts, waste taxpayer dollars, and place undue pressure on local election officials who may not have a full understanding of the law. So this bill would have a chilling effect on the very people who ensure our elections run smoothly, as I mentioned, town clerks, poll workers, and volunteers. Faced with the risk of being sued, many may choose not to participate at all just to play it safe, leading to staffing shortages and administrative strain, which is already something that we struggle with. Those who continue to serve may feel forced to act more cautiously out of legal self-preservation rather than focusing on the needs of voters and the integrity of the election process. So instead of strengthening our democracy, HB 514 rather opens the door to the weaponization of election law for partisan gain. It risks undermining voter confidence and diverting resources from genuine priorities like voter education, election security, and accessibility. New Hampshire has long demonstrated the strength and integrity of its election system through transparent audits, bipartisan oversight, and close elections that inspire public trust. HB 514 threatens that trust without providing meaningful benefits in return. I also recommend conferring with the AG's office before deciding on this. We must preserve the professionalism and fairness that defines our election process. I ask that you please ITL HB 514. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Rep. Bob Weary? Or you're not speaking, okay. Does anyone else wish to testify? Oh, I have a second sheet, great. Yes. Pretty much here I had all not speaking, so. You got the red light, just say your name for the record. That'd be
My
great.
name's Kate Hill, and I'm a moderator in Dover.
Thank you.
I didn't prepare anything to say because I didn't plan on speaking, but I think I kind of represent the boots on the ground here. When it all comes down to it, I am one of the election officials who this opens up to being sued. I've been involved in our elections for maybe 16 to 18 years, first as an election volunteer, and then as a selectman, and now as a moderator. And I have a team of about 50 volunteers that I've worked very hard to recruit and retain over the years. I put a lot of time and energy into educating myself on the updates of the election laws and keeping all my volunteers well educated as far as why we pick up a black pen, why we pick up a red pen, why we pick up a ruler, why we say this particular piece of information out loud 3 times such that somebody standing 8 feet away could hear us and understand us clearly. They understand why they're doing all this, and they can execute their job description with the confidence that they are following New Hampshire state election law to the letter of the law. Knowing in every election, there is a lot of misinformation, whether it was maliciously handed out or just innocently stumbled upon. And we spend a lot of time in elections doing voter education. Sometimes they will come to us and say, why are you doing it this way? You shouldn't be doing it this way, or we'll get accused. And we try in a very most polite way to explain why we are following the law by doing it this way. I think it strikes fear and ice into our hearts to think that because of a misunderstanding, we could be opened up to litigation. And I do know that, at least in my ward of Dover, the very possibility of this would change people being willing to run for these offices and serve on the election committee. That's all I have to say on this. Thank you.
You did great. People come in with these typed manuscripts and boom, loved it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in today. Appreciate it. Does anyone else wish to testify on 514 who didn't get a chance to speak or would like to? Seeing none,
Could you indulge me and allow me to speak to the representative?
I could indulge you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative, coming forward and taking my question. You had spoken of at least 3 occasions that this would have, that this sort of legislation would have made a difference. In your opinion, that person, I'm assuming, was running for office was violated. Would you care to elaborate briefly on what those instances might be without saying a name? Is there some way of having that conversation?
Yes, Mr. Senator, I can. There was a letter sent home with students in a specific school district that was advising them to inform their parents what candidates would best fund their school district. That's using government resources to influence a vote. There is a district that a member of the public did a right to know request for a government record from the public library. They should not have released that record. It was actually against the law to release that record, but they had
We
conferred with an attorney.
spoke of that one.
Okay.
What's
And then the third one was a public government agency released a candidate survey that was written custom tailored to one party and not the other. There were 3 neutral questions out of 12 questions on it. Every other question was tailored in a partisan manner to influence the vote. And that's actually the one where the lawsuit that the representative from Goffstown Ware referenced.
Thank you, Representative, for.
So none of those were about volunteers at the election site. They were about government agencies interfering with the election before the election, Mr. Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
your
very
time.
much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that will end that hearing. Representative Smith, want to come on up? We're back in session. We're going to hear House Bill 188. Representative Stephen Smith is going to introduce the bill. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee for hearing me today. I am Representative Stephen Smith, Sullivan County District 3, Charlestown, Newport, and Unity. House Bill 188 is Speaker Packard's bill. The author, Representative Bob Lynn, sends his regrets to you today, but he had an unavoidable county obligation. This bill comes to you 18-0 out of committee and then passing the House on a voice vote on the consent calendar. The problem the bill seeks to solve is, excuse me, the House has always had subpoena power, and the problem is without a defined after process, what happens if one is served and the person says, no, I'm not complying? The state of the law now, it would be up to the courts to figure that out, essentially the courts creating law, and we feel it's our job. So what this does is it creates a statute regarding contempt of the general court. Representative Lynn modeled this on the federal contempt of Congress statute, which is in Title II, United States Code, sections 192 and 194. Changes were made based on differences in the way our state legislature works from the United States Congress. A fairly simple bill that comes to you without controversy. I am neither a lawyer nor a judge, so I'm not sure how useful I will be, but I will try to handle any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Senator Elsher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for taking my question. Long time no see since transportation.
Yes.
Yeah. So is there an example of when, one or two examples of when this would have been really helpful to pursue a line of questioning or to get documents that were not provided to the general court?
There have been cases where we've had trouble getting documentation that we needed for things. Having said that, the subpoena process hasn't been used because of the then what question. As you're aware, our cycle is very compressed. We have like 90 days to process a bill. If we retain a bill in year one, okay, then you get a year. But there's never been any confidence that this whole thing would shake out in that amount of time. We believe that the lack of a process is why it hasn't been used. And it's not that we want to strong arm anybody. We feel that if we have this tool in extreme cases where we're getting stonewalled, we may not have to use it simply because it does exist.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So so what I'm hearing you say is that this isn't being used because of the fear that if the boundary is pushed, there's no recourse. Did I hear you correctly right now?
Yeah, because we wouldn't want to do it
Yeah.
just for show or punishing someone. We would want whatever the documents were that we were after. And no one had any confidence that there's a way to get that without codifying what contempt of the legislature is, the general court.
So my question is when was the last time that the general court exercised the subpoena power if it hasn't been in recent memory? Like when was the last time it was used?
I do not know the last time it was
Okay.
used. I can tell you that 4 years ago, I wish I had it because there was a very simple report, and I'm not going to call out the agency. I asked for some very simple statistics that I know exist in their database, still waiting 4 years later.
Last follow-up. So a state agency didn't respond to a request from, I'm going to assume this is when you were chair of transportation too? Yeah, so.
It was a state agency, yeah.
Yeah, so a state agency didn't respond to a chair of a committee, which is, with a specific information request. So if this were in place, the civil contempt would be to the commissioner or to whoever in the agency is responsible for that specific type of, I'm looking to see who it gets applied to.
In some state agencies, it would be the commissioner. Where there are specialized departments within a division, then it could be a director.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Is Rep. Granger testifying? Not this? No, okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on 188? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing. So, where are you? I didn't know if you had strong. Okay.
If I take signage.
Yep. Thank you. Senate Judiciary is back in session. We're going to now go to House Bill 584. Representative Granger, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Michael Granger from Stratford 2. So this bill is intended to curtail globalism in New Hampshire. Globalism is an ideology that seeks global governance, and this is just a fancy way of saying try to rule the world. So I would consider globalism to be bad. The bill tries to ensure that public sector workers don't enforce the edicts, commands, and mandates of international organizations that should not have sovereignty in New Hampshire, but often act as though they do. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Sure, I'll start. Where are you seeing these in local government, state government enforcement, or they're looking to the UN or the WHO? And where's that getting written into our policies?
One of the more, the WHO was a bigger problem during the coronavirus pandemic. And I don't believe that they act as though, in many cases, that they have the force of law. The WHO and the other globalist organizations, the World Economic Forum, people pretty much know what that is now. But for a while, they were able to act as though they had some level of legitimacy. And I don't believe that public employees executing the orders of these globalist organizations rises to the level of straight treason, but it should be treated seriously, and especially after all the things that we saw in the 2020 pandemic and things after that, and the international health regulations that sound as though they have the force of law. We should be taking this seriously and have a cause of action to prevent them from enforcing these rules.
Any questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's fine. Kate Horgan. Ms.
Thank-
Horgan, you would fit in the South, down in Charleston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will endeavor to be briefer than my last testimony in front of this committee. We'll see if we can set a new record today. But my name is Kate Horgan. I'm here on behalf of the New Hampshire Association of Counties. The association is opposed to this bill. We're very concerned about the private right of action that is laid out. Obviously, counties provide some of the services to the most vulnerable populations, particularly nursing homes. I think it is unclear in this bill if CMS adopts something that is recommended by one of these other organizations, would we then be in violation of that, which would then open us up to lawsuits? And then we come down to a choice of, are we going to choose to get sued, or are we going to choose to lose our licenses and not provide services to our county taxpayers? I will end it there, but I'm happy to take any questions.
So if I understand it, so if you happen to coincidentally come up with a policy that mirrored one of these groups, that's what you're saying?
Or if CMS adopted something that was similar to something that the other groups had
Sure.
adopted, we have to follow CMS. We don't have a choice.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ms. Organ. Abby Friedman. I'm sorry, Aubrey. I see you enough, I should get it right. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Aubrey Friedman, I live in Bridgewater. I speak in support of this bill. Administrations come and go, members of Congress come and go. This bill is actually looking forward because what is applying today might be very different in the future. The three organizations that are listed, and I have more details in my backup. If you could please read those later. I won't take up testimony time now, but I think they're authoritarian, one size fits all, and definitely top down, all three organizations. Now, I want to call attention to, I read the minority report on this, and there's one sentence on there. I want to quote it and just talk about it for a moment or so. This is from the report. The organizations this bill identifies have never and will never issue an enforceable mandate on the state of New Hampshire and local and state entities or any other state, nor would any action of any of these organizations identified have any force of law. Okay, have never. I agree, that's fair enough, they haven't. But can we really say that they will never issue? I mean, we could look back 10 years ago, and if somebody said, well, is there going to be like a lockdown, that live free or die state, a 2-month-long martial law style of lockdown in the state of New Hampshire, we would have just laughed at that. And we would say, well, that can't be, that's impossible. And yet it happened. So that's what this bill is looking forward. It's not happening today, but it actually could happen in the future. The world is a changing place. We've seen terrible authoritarianism during the pandemic years, and it could happen again. It could be worse. So this bill is just looking forward. We should protect our own sovereignty, our states' rights here, and our natural rights too, not to be ruled by top-down organizations. So that's why I think this bill is really good moving forward for the future. And those are the reasons I support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Seeing no questions, you have a great day.
Thank you.
Representative Horgan.
Thank you very much. I'm Resident Timothy Horgan for Stratford County District 10. So I'm no relation to the similarly named person who spoke. In fact, mine is an extra syllable in it. And I, because I was on the House Judiciary Committee, I did not write the minority report, but I certainly endorse everything my fellow member, well, at least in the case of this report, I endorse everything my fellow member from Durham said. So it is true, the World Health Organization, United States, and the World Economic Forum, none of them have any direct influence over how the government operates here in New Hampshire. The previous gentleman, he was worried about authoritarianism. I will say, I agree with him in that. I'm very worried about authoritarianism, and I see a lot of it. I see our country becoming more authoritarian, although to a lesser extent in New Hampshire than nationwide. So so anyways, the World Economic Forum, to get to that one first, it's basically just an organization that sponsors a conference. Usually, the most recent one was in Davos, Switzerland, so I'm not sure what other authority it has over anything other than the conference, even though I guess the people who attended are many of them are very powerful. So that part of it in particular doesn't make much sense. The World Health Organization was involved a lot in the response to the pandemic, and that was not a easy time for any of us. But I think their contribution was a positive one. I participated in a very small way in some of the. I attended a number of webinars, for example, about creating the vaccine and stuff. So we had a global pandemic, and obviously they played a role in coordinating various nations' response, including ours, but it too has no jurisdiction over us. So this bill is unnecessary in that regard. And looking ahead just to the next few years, the current administration seems not very interested in anything the World Health Organization is going to say anyway. So even if we had another pandemic, I don't think we would, for better or worse, we absolutely would not respond the way we did to the last pandemic. So there would not be, especially a lot of the people who coordinated the response to the last pandemic don't even have jobs anymore. So, I would just say, this bill is unnecessary and it's counterproductive, and so you should find it inexpedient to legislate. So,
Thank you very much, Representative. Seeing no questions.
all right, thank you.
Have a great afternoon. Melissa Blazek. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Melissa Blazek. I am here representing Rebuild NH. I have come to refer to this bill as the Anti-Globalist Act. This bill is a crucial step in protecting the sovereignty of New Hampshire and the ability of our state to make decisions free from external mandates that could come from organizations like the World Health Organization, the United Nations, or the World Economic Forum. The essence of this bill is simple. It prohibits the state and its political subdivisions from enforcing any mandates from these entities. When a version of this bill was introduced last year, there was some concern about it being overly broad or restrictive. We heard from previous testimony, and I would disagree with her concerns. I want to clarify that this bill does not restrict the ability of the state or any of its agencies from referencing research or guidance from these organizations when making informed decisions. What we are doing is ensuring that New Hampshire is not forced into adopting mandates that originate from entities who are not accountable to our citizens. Other states have enacted similar legislation, and New Hampshire needs to join them. One of the most pressing and current examples of potential mandates from international bodies is the ongoing effort to amend the International Health Regulations, or the IHR Pandemic Treaty, in the WHO. Even though the United States has taken steps to withdraw from the WHO, we remain bound by the IHR Treaty. This treaty is still in place, and proposed amendments continue to pose a very real threat, potentially granting the WHO the authority to impose binding medical mandates on participating countries, states, and localities. These amendments could include, and they've bantered about different ones over the last few years, restrictions on travel, quarantine enforcement, vaccine mandates, and surveillance measures, all implemented without direct consent of state governments or their citizens. While this threat may seem abstract or distant, it is very real and ongoing. And with the possibility of future shifts in federal leadership, there is no guarantee that national policy will not realign with these global institutions in ways that threaten state sovereignty. The actions of President Trump in withdrawing from the WHO were a step in the right direction. However, the continued binding nature of the IHR means we are not yet free from international overreach. That is why HB 584 is so important. It provides long-term safeguards against the potential overreach and ensures that New Hampshire's future will not be dictated by the political whims of national or global organizations. The beauty of federalism is that states have this power to make decisions for themselves. We should not have to rely on or be subject to shifting political currents of national or international bodies. I urge you to support HB 584 and make New Hampshire a leader in protecting state sovereignty and individual freedom.
Thank you, Melissa. Any questions? Nope. Seeing none. Thank you very much for your time. Does anyone else wish to speak on 584? Come on up.
Representative Henry Geisen, Hillsborough 29th. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Honorable Senate Committee. I think it's important to speak now from the perspective of a veteran. I served 24 years in the military and was a New Hampshire citizen no matter where I was living during that whole 24 years. The oath to serve and protect the United States and our loyalty to our state should be paramount. The sovereignty of the state from overhead rule and the sovereignty of the nation from overhead rule is what makes us the United States of America and the honorable state of New Hampshire. Other bodies, other outside entities, we can view them as advisory, and I have no problem with viewing them as advisory. But the WHO has made decisions that favor other countries ahead of us, and the United Nations has nations on their humanitarian councils, such as Somalia, who don't do a lot of great humanitarian things. So when you look at these other agencies and how they're ruling, they're not always ruling in the best interest of the United States or in the best morals of the United States. So this bill doesn't prevent us from following the guidance. It just says that we are a sovereign state and we maintain that sovereignty, and we can take their advice or not, but we're not obligated to. Thank you.
So I'll ask you a question. So right now, though, we are a sovereign state, sovereign nation. We don't have to take anyone's, what group do we have to listen to here or follow? You're saying we were a member are you saying the UN is writing policy that we're following? Or any other group? Does this?
As a soldier, the UN wrote policy that I had to follow in other countries, but in the state, I don't know. I'd have to do a little bit more homework, but I have seen a strong influence to, like, the COVID problem was referenced multiple times, and there were certain businesses that couldn't be engaged in unless you comply. And, the compliance it did not come across as recommended.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to testify on 584? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing. Senate Judiciary is back on, and we're going to listen to a good representative. I forget your name.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My name is Juliette Harvey-Bolia. I represent Belknap District 3. Thank you very much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you, Juliette.
On House Bill 71. The impetus of this bill is the closing of schools in Brooklyn, New York, and it was crafted last year. This bill is pretty much word for word following Senator Ted Cruz's Schools Not Shelters bill, and is modeled after that. Basically, after COVID happened and they shut our schools down for, in my case, almost a year, I swore that we would never let them shut our schools down again for political reasons. I had to push to get my schools to open. My son was, he was in the schools at the time. He was getting depressed being out of school for so long. And I noticed, I called around, there were other parents who were also having children that were suffering from depression. I called the schools and the school counselor, I said, what can we do to get them in? And he said, well, by the way, a lot of parents are calling in with the same complaints. Their children are depressed and we're still recovering from the negative impacts of when our schools were shut down for almost a year, still, years later. So that is the main driver of this bill, to keep our schools and prioritize them for our children, not for other populations. You may hear people after me who say that this is a mean bill, but it is kind to our students. So what this bill does is it does prevent remote learning. It does not ban schools from housing non-student populations. It does not prohibit schools from turning their schools into temporary emergency shelters. So it's got carve-outs for disasters, as you probably see. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So schools can still be used. There's a short term is defined as not to exceed 72 hours, and it can be used for any number of disasters, the schools. But it is not to be carved out for certain populations to have the schools closed down. And with that, I will take any questions if the committee has any.
Sure. This is probably nice and narrowly tailored. In Boston, they used the Reggie Lewis Center, and then the community couldn't, which is a great area for all ages, use this facility. Big track, big facility. Senior population uses it extensively, and they couldn't use it. They were housing illegals. Should this be broadened to include those things? Are you happy just with the schools?
Yes, thank you for your question. Your question is, should be sort of expanded to include other municipal buildings? We thought about that. But that is entirely the call of the committee.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. Is there any example of this happening in New Hampshire at all?
Thank you for your question, Senator. This, as far as I know, this has not happened, but it has happened at Logan Airport over the summer prior to this happening, where they closed Logan, where they sectioned off Logan Airport for months, housing hundreds of undocumented people there. And I don't think it does justice to those people to house them in that way. And it is poor planning. There was enough political pressure where Governor Healy decided to ban the sort of housing of people in the Logan Airport. And that's another reason why I brought this bill forward, was the taking over of, it's so close to us, Massachusetts. It's not that far away, so.
I follow up. But this bill doesn't have anything to do with airports, so it doesn't apply to the Manchester airport at all. This is just about schools. And essentially what this does is it's another, do you not see this as another attempt of a top-down, taking away local control to be able to respond to emergencies in a way that makes sense for their community, by the state telling municipalities what they can and cannot do with their own municipal buildings that they built and paid for?
Thank you for the question. I do not see it as some sort of taking of local control, other than, if you want to have these populations, planning needs to happen. And each state is required to have a refugee housing plan. They take these federal dollars for alien populations. They're supposed to have a plan for where to put them. And so it shouldn't be a big surprise if you have these populations being flown in or sent into your area. You're supposed to have some sort of plan for them. And as I said before, this isn't anything against any particular ethnic group. It's pro-student. I think what happened was parents were furious in Brooklyn after they suddenly closed their schools, because it was, again, sort of reliving the nightmare of our schools are closed, what are our children going to do, and how long is this going to go on for? And that's why one of the reasons why the bill is the 72 hours. So if it does happen that there's an emergency, parents know, okay, it's not to exceed 72 hours. Thank you.
Thank you. You were done? I'm sorry, one more. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Mr. Friedman. Aubrey. Oh, okay.
Friedman.
Gotcha. Not often.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Aubrey Friedman again, Bridgewater. Speak in support of this bill. Well, the New Hampshire taxpayers, and mostly local, we're speaking, actually own the schools. So I don't think it's right to, and again, this hasn't happened here. This is a forward-thinking bill. You know, just because it hasn't happened here in New Hampshire doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. Again, it's just being proactive. But the New Hampshire taxpayers own those schools, and I don't think it's fair, if it happened, that the federal government, due to the way the southern border has gotten kind of out of control, that they should be forced to give up the use of their schools. Because after all, these buildings are for learning. They weren't built for housing. And the other point I want to make, about the non-germane amendment, which is a little strange that it's attached to this bill, but I happen to support it too, is actually that when the Department of Health and Human Services contracts with a healthcare provider, they have to include something about the patient's Bill of Rights. And that's because I'm sure you heard about the incident at Dartmouth Hitchcock, where the lady was denied to get a kidney transplant because she hadn't, her vaccine status was she didn't get the COVID vaccine. That was an outrage. That's part of the state, patient Bill of Rights. So this non-germane amendment that was thrown in here, this is a protection for consumers and to prevent tyranny. Now, again, right now it is part of the law, but including that in the contracts that the DHHS makes, this is better protection for consumers. So, and that's the reason I support this amendment too, even though it's strangely attached to this bill. And those are the reasons I support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Seeing no questions, you have a good day.
Thank you.
Lisa Friedman. Representative, how you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, Senator. And thank you, Senator, and members of the committee. I'm Representative Lisa Freeman. I represent Belknap District 8, which has the wonderful people of Belmont, Sandwichen, and Tilton. I come before you today as a co-author and a co-sponsor of HB 71FN. There was a little bit of impetus behind this bill, and I'll make it very brief. First off, I took a trip last January 2024 from Logan Airport in the international terminal. And while I was walking onto the gate that was to be mine to depart from, there was a large petition in Logan Airport. And behind that petition, just a petition like you would see a room divider, was about 500 people. Now, I can't say with certainty if they were immigrants or refugees, but what I do know is there was 500 people in an airport that's supposed to be secure, past security, that were sitting on the floor waiting around. Obviously, Logan Airport was being used to shelter illegal aliens. And the other situation that prompted this was the story that came out of Roxbury, Massachusetts, about, and if anyone's familiar with the Boston area, and if you can't tell, I am originally from Boston, there is only one community center in Roxbury, Massachusetts, which happens to have the largest minority population in the Boston area. That community center was used for children every day after school. Parents depended on that center. They closed the center and they used it as a shelter for illegal aliens. This bill has prompted that, along with my late husband, who was a 15-year employee with the United States and Customs Immigration Service. And he was a stellar employee, but one of the things that frustrated him was that every time a new administration came down the pike, no one followed the laws. They made them up as they went along. So this bill would ensure that none of our publicly funded buildings, as far as schools, secondary schools, and colleges would be used to house illegal aliens. Alien is a term under USC Section 8 that states that an alien is in fact someone who has gained illegal entry into the country. It's cited in the bill and you can look it up. There are many instances, and I did hear the senator's question about we haven't heard any instances in New Hampshire. You're correct, we haven't. We haven't heard. There may have been instances, but we may not be aware of them. I also have heard that opponents of this bill think it's not humane, that would refuse shelter to anybody. There's all carve-outs in this bill for refugees, legal asylees, legal immigrants, if they need shelter. So this just basically is looking to codify an assurance that the buildings that the taxpayers fund will not be used to house unvetted aliens. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I can answer them.
I like that positive attitude. Questions? No. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Henry, come back. I want to thank you for your service. What branch were you in, sir?
I was in the Army for 24 years.
Okay. Again, thank
Finished
you.
my career with the National Guard. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Honorable Senate Committee. For record, Henry Geisen, Hillsborough 29th District. So I would like to start by saying that this bill does not say that anybody would be turned away from any emergency sheltering action. It says that on 1A, subparagraph 1 on line 6, the word exclusively, that word is there for specific reasons. These tax-funded buildings are made for a specific purpose, and deviation from that purpose should only be done by necessity and when it's needed to protect all people, citizens, residents, all people. I would counter the concern that it takes local control. It doesn't take local control unless these facilities are completely and solely locally funded and managed, and they're not. Schools specifically are funded in part by the state, by SWEPT. They are property of all taxpayers, not only of the local municipality. I did a few cooperative operations with FEMA when I was in the Army, and I will tell you that in an emergency management situation, no person in risk is ever going to be turned away. Nobody's asking you to prove residency, citizenship, anything. It's about saving and protecting people from imminent danger. But I can tell you that having served at Camp Edwards Cape Cod, after that was used as a relocation shelter during Hurricane Katrina, that there was extensive damage to the military installation when it was used to house transients after the Hurricane Katrina disaster. Now, I don't know how many of those people were citizens, were legal immigrants, were illegal immigrants. I don't have that information with me, but I can tell you that when you reallocate a facility to be used as a long-term shelter, it will in fact get damage. It will in fact need extra law enforcement. It is not the prudent use for any of our funded facilities, especially our education facilities. My only concern with this bill is that it doesn't go far enough because it stops at schools. I think it should include all municipal facilities. Pending any questions.
Thank you. Seeing no questions. Thank you very much, Representative. Rep. Harvey. Juliet, did I lose you? Oh, you already went. Okay, I'm sorry. You're out of my gaze. Let's see. I don't think we missed anyone. Oh, Representative Horgan, did I not give you a chance? And then you can go, sir. Thank you. Representative Horgan, this is the only sheet I didn't see.
Okay.
But it's good to have you up here anyways.
I continue to be Representative Timothy Horgan. I continue to represent Stratford County District 10, the town of Durham. And so I'm opposed to this bill. It's, well, I guess we've been, as for specified aliens, that's not quite the same thing as the illegal alien. Merely being a alien present in the United States is not necessarily a crime, and that section 101A, a lot those people are waiting to see if they should be admitted legally as refugees or for some other reason. So this covers almost any educational institution that receives state financial assistance, which I guess would include a lot of private schools too, and especially with the institutions of higher learning, they own a lot of buildings that might be suitable for use for the shelter. So they don't just own classroom buildings and gymnasiums. Like the University of New Hampshire, for example, has a building which has been used for various purposes, mostly housing, which was built as a hotel. So it would actually probably be suitable for use as a shelter for individuals of whatever immigration status, and probably and even school districts and other schools might own buildings that they're not using for instructional purposes. The examples that were cited by the previous witnesses, none of them involved public schools. There was a community, if I recall correctly, there was part of Logan Airport, which was probably not being used for because the air, commercial air travel was greatly down during the pandemic, and there was a community center in Roxbury, which was probably did not meet the definition of schools. So, there's no evidence that in Massachusetts or any other state nearby that any schools were in fact used to house undocumented immigrants. This does appear to leave out entities that receive the school voucher money, and that includes a lot of religious schools which are affiliated with churches. So I guess I can see why they left that out, because that creates a pretty severe constitutional issue if you're forbidding churches from giving sanctuary, to refugees. And a specified disaster, that does include a national emergency. That's not a specified disaster. We've at least heard talk about mass deportations. Our president seems to think there's up to 50 million people who need to be deported. Of course, to do that, he'd have to deport about 35 to 40 million citizens, along with the along with the non-citizens that he'd be deporting. So that that's not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion, that type of operation is not covered by this, but that is something that was left out of the bill. So I would just urge you. I would urge you to refrain from passing this bill. So I would recommend ITL. So thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Horgan, for taking my question. In your testimony, you just made reference to, I believe, line 12.
Yeah.
And was it, I believe your testimony was that in USC section 1101A, USC 8, that alien means any person not a citizen or national of the United States.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's probably correct. I don't have the federal law book in front of me, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I'm sorry, Representative Stringham. I hope it's on there. I am Representative Stringham. I represent Grafton County, 3rd District. I'm a member of the Finance Committee that heard this particular bill about 4 times. There are 2 numbers that I would like to talk about as part of this bill. One is the number 0, and the other is the number 18 million. House Bill 71 bans the use of school and institutional facilities exclusively to shelter or house specified aliens under the order of a federal government, a state, or unit of local government. The Finance Committee heard significant concerns that this bill may conflict with the federal guidance, potentially resulting in the loss of federal funding from the Office of Refugee Resettlement and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. This could cost the state of New Hampshire as much as $18 million per year. Since we were the second committee to look at this, we took a look at the other side of the equation. There's a potential loss. What is the gain? So we looked at more depth and what exactly the word exclusively means. And basically, we'd have to take a school, basically kick all the kids out of it, and then house people for more than 72 hours in a permanent living situation for this to apply. And basically, the kind of consensus is this is probably never going to happen, but so that's what the zero is. It's about how often this applies, and 18 million is how much money financially is at stake. Given the confusion over the word exclusive and the use of specified aliens and the potential of an economic disaster of the man-made variety, I would suggest that this bill be ITL'd. And that's why I came in today. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Strain, for your testimony. I think we heard in earlier testimony that every state has to have a refugee policy. So ours is through the Department of Health and Human Services. And is that the loss of 12 to 18 million if we're out of compliance with our Office of Refugee Settlement and Department of Housing and Urban Development related policy?
That information came from the Department of Health and Human Services that said the bill may conflict with federal guidance, potentially resulting in the loss of federal funding from the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So,
may I follow up?
Mm-hmm.
So the guidance from the Office of Refugee Resettlement and Department of Housing and Urban Development gives guidance to the states. Our state has a policy for the operation of refugee admissions programs in New Hampshire.
Right.
That falls under that federal policy for which we receive federal funds.
We're eligible to receive, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, I'm Melissa Blasick. I'm here representing Rebuild NH. I just wanted to give a little context to the last section of the bill that is unrelated to the point about immigration. So in 2022, I was a co-sponsor of a bill that added to the Patient Bill of Rights, and it said that a patient could not be denied medical treatment based upon vaccination status. That applied to all vaccines, all patients, and all medical procedures. And then imagine my surprise, it's been in effect since the summer of 2022, when I'm contacted by a woman who was denied a kidney transplant at Dartmouth-Hitchcock, and she was willing to get all of the required vaccines, and they had quite a long list of them, except for the COVID vaccine. And she was being denied based off of that. There was a complete breakdown, in my opinion, when it came to enforcement of this law. There was no legal enforcement of this law. And so we mounted quite a PR campaign to bring awareness to the issue, which attracted the attention of Speaker Packard, who wrote a great letter to Dartmouth-Hitchcock, and that really created political pressure necessary for Dartmouth-Hitchcock to change their policy. However, it was my idea to have this language put into statute. I think if we are going to have law enforcement decide what they're going to selectively be enforcing and not enforcing, in this case, it came down to a legislator to make the difference, even though they are not law enforcement. I think that it's possible to add even more teeth to the patient bill of rights. And, it's I guess the golden rule, he who has the gold rules, and contracts are quite important to hospitals. So I think that this would be a great enforcement mechanism moving forward for the entirety of the patient bill of rights. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to testify on HB 71? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing. Senate Judiciary is back in session. The Honorable Joe Sweeney is going to introduce us to HB 511 relative to cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Good to see you, Joe. I'm very familiar with this bill and looks familiar to me.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Senate Committee. For the record, Representative Joe Sweeney, represent Rockingham District 25, that's the town of Salem. I'm here today to deliver a simple, clear message on behalf of the people of New Hampshire. If you are here illegally, you are not welcome in New Hampshire. House Bill 511 ensures that message is backed up with action. This bill bans sanctuary cities. It bans sanctuary policies. It makes it illegal for any state or local government to turn a blind eye to federal immigration law. And it requires our law enforcement agencies to honor immigration detainers when an illegal immigrant is in our custody for breaking New Hampshire law. Because let's be honest, a sanctuary policy is nothing more than an invitation for those lawbreakers to come here and hurt our communities. It sends the signal that New Hampshire will look the other way. Not anymore. HB 511 puts public safety first. It gives our officers clear direction. Cooperate fully with federal immigration authorities. No excuses. No games, no political cover for dangerous criminals. We also built in smart protections for victims and witnesses of serious crimes because we want criminals held accountable, not shielded by technicalities. But make no mistake, if you are in New Hampshire illegally and you commit a crime, we will not be giving you a free pass. We will honor lawful detainers. We will cooperate with federal authorities. We will defend our citizens first, not illegal aliens. The people of New Hampshire expect their government to uphold the law, all of it, not just the parts that are politically convenient. House Bill 511 is about protecting our families, our communities, and our state. It's about standing with law enforcement. It's about making it absolutely clear that New Hampshire will never be a sanctuary state. Again, if you are in New Hampshire illegally, you are not welcome here. I urge you to support House Bill 511 and send it to the full Senate with a strong recommendation. Obviously, I'm happy to take any questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. My only question would be, under this version, would it get in the way? Do you need, if there's an alleged, would it get in the way of people joining a 287 group like the state police, or which they already have once that have expressed interest? A lot of our northern towns have said, we want to work with Homeland and ICE and actually do more. So where some of the people they might stop might not already have an alleged violation, is that going to be a problem mixing the two laws if both bills were to pass?
I don't believe there'd be a conflict in here. I know there's a specific carve out in 511 for 287G agreements, But obviously, if
That's-
something like that were to come up, I
My
would,
only question. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Sweeney, for taking my question. So on page 2 of your bill, specifically lines 10, 15, and 16, it says you prohibit an agency from participating in the, and by agency, that's any local government entity too, correct? So if my town wanted to direct, my select board wanted to direct its police chief, and the police chief is hired by the select board, not an elected position, and they wanted to direct their police department not to engage in training under section 287. And this is a conversation happening across the state because we are witnessing federal immigration authorities getting it wrong repeatedly. So if a municipality does not want to participate, this bill requires them to, does it not?
thank you for the question, Senator. If the law enforcement agency wants to partner with the federal government through 287G, the law enforcement agency would be able to, and they would not be able to be stopped by any state or local government.
Follow up? Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this bill would take authority away from our select boards and our town councils from administering how and policies related to our municipal law enforcement by relinquishing that to the state or federal government. So the state would be telling municipal law enforcement agencies that your municipality is not in charge anymore. The state is, and the state says you got to work with the feds regardless. Is that how this is?
This would not, so the state is not directing every agency to comply with or to train and partner up with 287G. If the law enforcement agency wants to partner with 287G memorandum, and there's a few different options for them to partner
Outside
with.
of
Of a select board or anything, if the law enforcement agency wants to, this is empowering the law enforcement agency to keep our community safe. Obviously, there's already a number of state requirements for municipal law enforcement officers and law enforcement departments that don't have an up or down vote by select boards, because we do.
Seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Michael Lambert. Afternoon, Mr. Lambert. No, red light. Now you're on.
Red light, okay. Good afternoon, honorable ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Lambert. I'm from Hillsborough County. Immigration. It's a problem all around the globe. This administration has found a perfect problem to gain popularity and to win the White House. Immigration is only a tool of this administration. In fact,
I'll listen to you.
all of the anti-immigrant legislation, that is to say executive orders, are just tools. Tools that have successfully divided all of us. Tools to cause us to squabble among each other. What does this mean? It means that House Bill 511 and just about all the anti-immigrant proposals in New Hampshire are evidence that you and I are being used. Who here really is against immigrants? Who thinks that every person living and working in this country without proper documents is a criminal, a rapist, came from a prison or insane asylum? Who believes that instead of helping someone to get legal, we need to round them up and ship them out like infected animals without even a chance to explain? One last paragraph, and I'll be brief. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is who we are. We are better than this. And we must not allow ourselves to be used as tools this way. We must stop this crazy us and them behavior. We must not use immigration as a wedge. We will do the opposite. We will find ways to help our immigrant brothers and sisters. We will help them to become documented. We will help them to find shelter. We will help them with documentation. We will help them to navigate the system. They need us, and in fact, we need them. House Bill 511, we say no to.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Do we have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Timothy Lathbridge. If you have any written testimony, sir, just, she's handing it in maybe for you. Very good. So if you cannot read, because we will read your testimony, just talk to us would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Tim Lethbridge. I am the Superintendent of the Grafton County Jail and here representing the New Hampshire Association of Counties. I'm testifying in opposition to this bill as written, but I want to be clear, I'm not here advocating for any kind of a sanctuary policy. All of the jails in the state cooperate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. All jails and law enforcement agencies have been interconnected through the National Crime Information Center. And as soon as an inmate with a New Hampshire law violation reaches the jail and is fingerprinted, Immigration and Customs Enforcement is notified if there is a hold placed on them. The Grafton County Jail, like the other jails in the state, all cooperate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We relay information. Within the last 4 to 6 weeks, we had just that instance, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement was waiting outside the courthouse after arraignment for someone they were interested in. We do work together. The challenge with this bill is not all jails in the state are set up to honor it. And the costs associated with that could be very high. Jails run on classification systems. It's not keeping the lions away from the lambs because we're jails. It's keeping the wolves away from the coyotes and the coyotes away from the foxes and the wolves. If we take in civil detainee, we need to have separate housing areas where we're holding them. We need to keep them safe. You may have noticed jails are high liability agencies to run. We get sued a lot. If we start interspersing non-criminal civil detainees in with our criminal population, there's likely to be predation, there's likely to be victimization, and we're responsible for that. The taxpayers are responsible for that. That's who pays out on the lawsuits. There are jails within the state that have made these kind of investments, have the space, and are executing or already have executed agreements with ICE. Their local communities are supporting that. But as an examples of the costs involved, Stratford County, which does have an ICE contract, recently had one of their ICE detainees needed life flighted to Boston. The man-hour costs in officer time alone was $31,000 to sit security on this one civil detainee. That's not the medical costs, that's just the officer's costs. But Stratford County made the business decision to do that. Grafton County does not have empty housing units. We can't isolate a civil detainee from a criminal population. Pursuing these contracts with federal agencies is time-consuming and expensive. It takes dozens to hundreds of man-hours to properly set up the contracts, and all of those costs are borne by the local taxpayers. And the worst thing for the jails is when ICE makes a mistake, they have historically left the local jail holding the bag on the liability. There have been lawsuits over the last 2 decades of jails losing multi-million-dollar lawsuits for honoring ICE detention holds where ICE had made an error. Just most recently this year, Suffolk County, New York lost a $60 million lawsuit related to ICE holds. The recommendation of the jail superintendents is not in favor of a sanctuary policy, but to make this bill only apply to those jails that have executed agreements with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which then drags ICE to the table to help defend the jail if there is a lawsuit, makes ICE responsible for these medical expenses, and makes sure that the officer's time, if an inmate requires additional supervision or security, is covered rather than the local New Hampshire taxpayer. With that change, that would deal with the New Hampshire Association of Counties' concern regarding holding ICE detainees in the local jails.
How many jails have such contracts? How many beds are there?
Currently, Stratford does. Hillsborough is working on one. Rockingham is working on one. Cheshire has marshals and is looking at also grabbing on with ICE.
Okay. Other questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Linda Field. Good afternoon, ma'am. If you can try to keep it on point of the bill, that'd be great. Thank you.
I will. My name is Linda Field. I live in Peterborough, New Hampshire. Peterborough is a town where several years ago we voted to become a sanctuary city. We have asked our police to not interfere in any way with what ICE does, but not to necessarily step in. We recently had an incident and ICE came to our little town. We keep being told that there are criminals, they're dangerous people, and they're going to protect us from these dangerous people. What they did was they found some person who had been living in our town, working for 4 years, had a little family. People knew him. Everything was lovely. They took him away. We haven't heard anything about due process. Our police were there, stood by, did not interfere, did not participate. Now, the issue I have, and I hope you don't mind my going a little bigger when you say stick to the point, I have to go a little bit bigger. For years, I taught the Holocaust in 7th grade curriculum. And in the Holocaust, the common knowledge thing is they decided that the communists were bad news and they took them, the socialists, homosexuals, and they went on. And we know how that turned out. I taught a lot about bystanders, about people standing by. You're instructing our police to go in and do something that the town itself is against. You're instructing us to be bystanders by law when we don't see that a crime has been committed. And you keep, I hear things about alien immigrants and alien this and that and criminals. If I felt very comfortable that someone was going to be asked to go someplace, get a lawyer, have due process, that this was going to stop at a certain point, that it was going to be aimed at criminals, I would not be speaking here today. I have never spoken at the State House. when I hear that 2-year-old children who are natural citizens are born in this country are being taken away, it really terrifies me to say, yes, I will stand by and I will let people do whatever they want to do. And I think that it's unfair to place this on your citizens, especially ones who have felt and stated that we want something else.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Questions? Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question, Ms. Field. The town of Peterborough made a decision as a town not to have their police department engage with federal ICE. Is that correct?
Well, we said we were a sanctuary city.
That you would be a sanctuary city?
Yes.
Okay.
No? Oh, I'm
That
sorry.
is not
I'm
correct.
sorry.
She
It's
can
incorrect.
It's just her testimony.
Tell me what.
Let her go. Okay,
That
we're just letting her.
we should not be involved with ICE. I stand corrected.
Thank you.
Okay, so
The intent.
so your town took a vote that your police department, your municipal police department, shall not assist with ICE.
That was our hope, that was our intention, that was the message we were, as a town, transmitting to our select people that we hope would be followed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, ma'am. Daniel Robbins, Reverend Robbins. Come down, sir. So again, we're just sticking to the bill. And have you read the bill?
Yes, I have, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I'll stick to the bill. My name is David Robbins, Reverend David Robbins. I live in Harrisville, New Hampshire. And I have just 2 points to make regarding the bill. The first one is maybe 6-7 years ago, the town of Harrisville at their annual town meeting discussed at length the request to have our town police turned over to be used by ICE. And not once that I recall, but I could be in error, was the word sanctuary or sanctuary city ever raised. But the people of Harrisville, the people at that annual meeting, were very concerned about having our local control of our small little police force pressured, taken away from us, and used in ways that we don't want to. I think that ICE is certainly doesn't need any help. It doesn't evidence that it needs any assistance. It goes where it wants to. It picks up who it wants to. It doesn't really need the local police forces to assist in it. The second point is the cost. I think there will be a rebellion of sorts in some of our towns for feeling pressured to adopt policies that go against their local inclinations. I think there'll be lawsuits brought by perhaps the towns, perhaps by the people who've been picked up. And I see that the estimated state impact is possibly, if the state needs to hire another assistant attorney general position, would be $132,000 a year. And I think that probably would be an outcome if this bill would be passed. And considering the tightness of the state budget, I don't think this would be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick question. So you're aware that the bill it's not asking your local officials to do anything affirmatively. It's just, we'll say Lebanon is a place. They have ordinances to not assist, to not let, they have things to actually interfere in the Lebanon ordinance. And then my other thing would be, we've had communities where, off next to my communities, Rye had a mass murder from Brazil there, who had killed 12 people. So there are bad things going on, whether or not we're aware of them. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware you're not being asked to actually do an affirmative step. It's just not to.
Point of information, Mr. Chair, there was no mass murder in Rye. There was a man arrested.
Mass murder, I'm sorry.
He did not, there was not a mass murder in my district. There was a man arrested who was accused of that in another location. So I just want to be clear that there was in another country, not even in the United States.
We don't need to argue it, but there was a.
But you just asserted that there was a mass murder in my district and there was not.
Well, I'll disagree with you on that, but that's fine.
There was no mass murder in Rye.
Not a mass murder, I have a cold. There was a mass murderer living and working in our districts.
Alleged.
Okay, thank you.
Alleged.
And no one was
Thank
murdered
you.
in Ryan. I understand that
Thank you.
this doesn't make police forces do anything, but the state pressure is unfounded and I'm against it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm still representing Timothy Horgan from Stratford County District 10, so I'm still from Durham. So and I'm on the Stratford County Executive Committee, so I'm very familiar with the immigration facility we have at the Stratford County Jail. It's not intended for the worst of the worst. Almost all the individuals who are in there are not there for either anything, at least nothing serious, other than simply being in the country allegedly without permission. And certainly we as Americans, we take it for granted that we can go to other countries if we want to live there, and we would expect them to welcome us. So it's a little bit inconsistent for a little bit inconsistent for us to object when other people from other countries want to live there. Although I do understand, we have to enforce our immigration laws, and I think certainly it's better. Obviously, we like it if people come here legally. We've made it very hard for someone to come in here legally, which actually, I'm familiar with the case. We had the little colloquy at least the news reports about it, including some from Brazil, which I read. I don't really know Portuguese, but I can imagine with Google Translate and my minimal high school Spanish, I could work it out. And that particular individual, he was a police officer in Brazil. There was a scandal involving mass murders by police. Probably if something similar happened in the United States, we'd be urged to back the blue and he would have supported the police officers. But he was just a rookie policeman. He left the country with his wife, and they were both actually there illegally, so they were not illegal immigrants in any case. And so that's not really an argument for or against this bill. So actually, most immigrants, the only thing they want to do that's against the law is to be here without going, through the official channels, which are very, very difficult to navigate anyway. So they're not necessarily more violent than the rest of the population, probably even less so, the statistics show. And also, if somebody's a really, really bad actor, we have one of the largest prisons.
Morgan, can you speak to the bill?
Yes, I think this.
Thank you.
I think towns and cities should be allowed to have sanctuary policies. We should not be cooperating with the mass deportation of aliens. And I might also point out that we've already heard some cases of citizens being caught up in this. There'll probably be more citizens caught up with this, either through case of mistaken identity of ISIS being overzealous, and also the immigrants. They're part of our community. They have their family members and friends who are living here. And so some of those individuals are going to be facing legal consequences if their friend or loved one gets caught up in the ice dragnet. So this is I just think this is a dangerous bill. So we should not be encouraging local law enforcement to serve as deputy ICE agents without proper training. We certainly have had some unfortunate incidents already. So thanks.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yep.
Questions?
Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony, Representative. Glenifer Gillespie? I might get to you in a minute, sir. Yeah, I got an extra sheet. They only gave them to me one at a time, so I'm getting there. Ma'am, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and committee members, thank you for listening to me today. My name is Glenifer Gillespie. I'm from Peterborough, New Hampshire, originally from South Africa. I am indeed a legal immigrant, and I hope I have contributed to the United States as such. So I'll be brief. I vigorously oppose this bill, in particular, Clause 1. As Senator, I think it's pronounced Atchiller, has inquired recently, it's specifically around the decisions made by the town of Peterborough relative to the function of their police department. I moved to New Hampshire because of its history of grassroots democracy. I support the right of towns in New Hampshire to make their own decisions about matters that affect them, whether they agree with my personal principles or not, and are in line with their values, the values of that specific community. This includes the right to make choices with respect to local policing and the extent of their powers in town, in keeping with local town ordinances. As has already been mentioned, the town of Peterborough voted that its police department should not be required to support ICE. As has also been mentioned, we recently had an incident in Peterborough where I believe 4 people from our local Mexican restaurant were removed by ICE. These were good working people and they were our neighbors. They were not criminals, mass murderers, and to my knowledge had committed no crime. So, having said that, I would really reiterate, it is up to the town. It is the rights of the town and the voters that live in that town which should determine what the police are able and not able to do. Thank you.
Question for you. So if I live in an adjoining town and I have the opposite policy, but all the towns around you, wouldn't you say once your town has, first of all, my thoughts are that this isn't going to interfere. They're not asking you to participate. It's just that this bill asks you not to interfere with ICE or Homeland in their duties. They're not asking you to affirmatively go arrest someone or do anything. They're just saying not to interfere. And then my own personal thought, we have had criminals from foreign countries do illegal activities here.
Yes.
Whether or not you want to call them illegal aliens, whatever, people who were non-documented, whatever. Do we not have a right as a state, because the actions of your town will let the people in who the rest of the state may not have. So your actions are going to affect the next town. So whereas what do you say to your actions? So I don't mind you not participating.
Right.
It's when if you get in the way and have like a welcoming ordinance that says not to cooperate with the police, like as far as the police just want to know if you're holding the people in the prison, are in your jail, you've arrested them. Do you not want to cooperate at all as far as even letting them know that you have this person who they have a detainer warrant for, if ICE or Homeland had it? So they're not asking you to arrest, just to work with them, to cooperate with them.
As long as these are not criminals and we don't know that they're criminals, then I don't think the police should have to participate with ICE, or any federal agency for that matter, or support them.
I'm fine. Thank you, Senator Coe.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Our criminal statutes apply to citizens and aliens alike, right? ICE has the ability to detain any person that's charged with a crime here in New Hampshire.
Any person, I'm not sure. Would they have jurisdiction over someone violating
If they
state law?
commit a crime in the state of New Hampshire, does it matter whether you're a citizen or you're an immigrant here from another country?
I'd have to ask Homelander ICE.
Anyone.
You were saying anyone can ICE, could they come and arrest me?
Our criminals,
Anyways, I'm not,
our criminal
I'm
statute
not
here in the state of New
testifying. Senator,
Hampshire,
it's not decorum for you to ask me, and I swear.
I'm
we're asking-
clarifying your question that you're asking.
Okay, we're asking
Thank you.
the citizens questions. Thank you. Do we have any questions for?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Gillespie?
Yes.
Gillespie, thank you. Ms. Gillespie, in the town of Peterborough, when your town made a decision for your municipal police department not to interfere or participate when ICE was executing their own detention requests, did you also instruct your municipal police department to differentiate between an illegal, an undocumented person or a U.S. citizen who committed a crime?
I'm not sure. Perhaps other Peterborough people here might know the answer to
Are
that.
crimes regardless of who they're committed by?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. David Blair?
Thank you, Senators, for the opportunity to talk with you today. I live in Harrisville, a town that's been brought up. I oppose this bill. It is, first of all, an unfunded mandate. We are a tiny town. Our police force is stretched very thin. I suspect the same is true in the city of Manchester, that the police are very busy trying to do what they are required to do to keep their communities safe. And to ask our local law enforcement to participate, to begin to do the work of federal law enforcement is, again, I would say an unfunded mandate, because it will take away the time, their focus from the specific local enforcement that they are charged with. I also agree with previous speakers that this infringes on local control. Our town did not instruct our police force to in any way obstruct or impede the enforcement, any enforcement actions, but we did say, stay in your lane. If you are stopping someone, for instance, because their taillight is out, you don't need to ask about their immigration status. We did not want our police force to feel pressed to to do the work of federal law enforcement. The bill is a little vague, I would say. It says at one point that local law enforcement is to use, and I quote, best efforts to assist the ICE or any other immigration enforcement. It's not quite clear what best efforts means. If that means not to obstruct or impede, those are other words used, our policy is in line with that. We don't obstruct or impede, but we should not be encouraged or pressed to go beyond that simple stance. I also think that there will be considerable costs in lawsuits brought for racial profiling, which had happened before. During the first Trump administration, I believe millions of dollars were paid out. I do not, however, have a number in people who were unjustly and incorrectly detained, profiled, and harassed, and therefore that will happen again. That will be a hidden cost of this bill. Most important to me, I have worked with refugees and immigrants since 1994 in New Hampshire and also 87 overseas. Many people have come from countries where they fear the police, and they have every reason to fear the police. When they come here, they have an opportunity to interact with police who are different. Our local police have worked really hard and with considerable success to build relationships of trust with immigrant communities. And those relationships keep our cities safer, because then immigrants are willing to come forward, share information, perhaps to testify, to just keep eyes out and keep their police force informed of what's going on in the neighborhoods. If immigrants see police beginning to act together doing immigration enforcement, they are not going to be able to trust that they could safely come forward to report, to testify. I have worked with and met people in ICE, people in Customs and Border Protection who are wonderful individuals, very caring, very professional. But those are not the ICE agents that we're seeing in the news. We're seeing people, sometimes masked, unidentified, who may be breaking into homes, breaking into cars. Yes,
If you
Senator?
could just stick to the bill.
Yes, yes, sir. So this is what people are seeing on the news. It's not the full picture, but any immigrant in New Hampshire who might wish to assist law enforcement would now have reasons to fear. And that means our local police are not going to have the cooperation of the immigrant communities, which means our cities will be less safe.
Just one thing, there are provisions in the law, if you cooperate with Homeland or ICE, you would be then even given favorable status towards your immigration. So they are not, so if you cooperated with police, you wouldn't be, it would help you if anything.
That's good to know, Senator Gannon, and I am quite sure that many immigrants will not either know of those guarantees or trust them, given that people are going for their regular interviews for ICE to update their status and being taken away.
Do you have any questions, Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You referenced a law that you corrected, but you referenced a law. If you reference it,
Stopping you right now.
how can you reference a law
Wait a
without
minute,
backing it
Senator.
up with what law?
Senator, we're going to take a recess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're taking 5 minutes.
Do I turn the mic off,
Yeah,
Senator?
that'd be great. Thank you, sir. Do we just have one left, Rep. Barry? Is that the only one? You're the only one left to testify? Okay, come on up. Can you go get her? We'll just finish them. I have one left, just if she's right here. Just Catherine, okay. Well, I can just, I'm going to resume now. Representative Barry, good to see you, sir. How you doing today?
So, I think you get to bookend your day or your afternoon with me.
There you go.
Thanks for
511.
Thanks for not wait 5 minutes for your last one to speak.
Stick with the bill.
My name is Representative Rossberry. I represent the towns of Goffstown and Ware. I am also a co-sponsor of 511. So this is a great bill. Obviously bans sanctuary cities, welcoming city policies, whatever you want to call them, whatever new name that they're giving it. I think it's a great idea. If I had a suggestion, if the bill doesn't go far enough, which I know you're probably sitting there going, but what? I would like to see on page 2, line 19, state entity. I would like to see judges added into that. From what we saw from the judge in Milwaukee who aided and abetted an illegal immigrant out of the jury box so that the illegal immigrant could avoid ICE. So I would like to see the judicial system added to this, giving that, we've seen that in Milwaukee. We also saw that arrest, I believe it was the Nashua courthouse. I'm not saying that in that situation that they weren't complying, but Clearly, if they're already in court, we should just kind of button that up while we're here. I also like to address some of the things that were said specifically about local control. So I want to remind everybody that New Hampshire is a Dillon rule state. Every right that a town has actually flows from the state down to the town. And you can disagree with that, you can not like that, it just is. Bills that have attempted to bring forward home rule, the last one to do it was actually Speaker Gene Chandler, and it went down in flames. So the state is in every right to tell a town, no, you cannot adopt a sanctuary city policy. And honestly, I find it kind of ludicrous that someone would assert that their town should vote to not follow the law. To quote a quote that just came up, crimes are crimes no matter who commits them. And entering the country illegally is a crime. They are criminals. If you do not come into this country with documentation, if you are not authorized to enter here, you are a criminal. Period. You are a criminal. Period. And we should treat you as such. And this whole, we should welcome you. It's okay. The reason you broke the law is okay. That's not how the law works. If you broke the law, you are to be held accountable. It sounds like Peterborough and Harrisville, maybe they don't really believe in the rule of law anymore. I don't know. But the reality is unless those residents are staying in Peterborough and Harrisville, which I highly doubt that, then the reality is they're traveling across town lines. It's now a state issue, right? And finally, with this arrest in Rye, it's not alleged. The guy was convicted. He was convicted in a jury of killing 11 people in Brazil, and apparently because the mass murder happened in Brazil, it's not a big deal. Big deal to me, probably a big deal to everybody around him. But these are the sort of people that we should just let through because it makes us feel good. It's ridiculous. So I absolutely hope that you tighten up that line, add the judiciary in, so there's no, sneaking people out through the jury box. And I'm happy to take any questions since I was your first speaker, and I guess now you're last.
Thank you, Representative Berry. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. Does anyone else wish to speak who didn't get a chance or had signed in and I didn't see it? Seeing none, that'll end the hearing. Thank you. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Okay, and we're gonna start with the no. All those in favor of going into exec? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. We're gonna start for no real reason with 584, HB 584. I'm making an ITL motion. I have a second. I'll just tell you my thoughts. You can go on if you want, or we can leave it there. Overly broad, created a new private right of action, testimony of Ms. Oregon and the municipalities were against, and it seems really broad, these four huge sections in their bill. So, other thoughts? Again, on 584.
I agree, ITO.
Okay, I'll set the vote. Okay, all in favor of the ITL motion, say aye.
Aye. Move consent.
Second. All those in favor of the consent motion?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone particularly want to take it out, or I can? I will. Great, thank you. Okay, we're moving to 514. I'm making an ITL motion.
Second.
Okay, discussion's gonna be real brief. It would have a chilling effect on the volunteers of my community if they started thinking they were going to get sued. There's also technical problems for the AG's office with the 5 to 10 days. And then they would turn back documents to the requester with, what's the correct word, Kate, when they don't get to look at the redacted. They wouldn't get to redact the private information of individuals. And you guys may have other reasons for being against this bill. Thoughts?
I
Yes.
thought the Dover election worker
Yes.
very well articulated exactly what the training is, that punishing somebody for something that was a mistake when they're really highly trained and all volunteers. And I think it is difficult to get poll workers, and I agree with the chair that this would just chill anybody who wanted to.
Okay, all in favor of the ITL motion? Aye.
Move
Motion
consent.
carried. Second. All in favor of the consent motion?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll take it out.
Okay, it's yours.
Take one off your plate.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move to 666 because 666. I want it off my plate. Just don't like those numbers. Okay. If, House Bill 666.
It's a library card one, right?
I'm gonna make an ITL motion.
Second.
I'll just, for lack of better words, say it's not very precise. And I'll leave it at that, so I don't say too much. People can't quote me if I don't say much. Any other thoughts?
I think the penalty was a little extreme for the bill.
Okay. All in favor of the ITL motion?
Aye.
Move consent.
Second. All in favor of the consent motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Take it out.
Ruth will take it out.
I'll be happy to take it out.
Thank you, Ruth.
All right, stepping in.
Stepping up.
Judiciary.
Never know, right?
Be a little blurb. Okay, we're moving on to HB 522. I'm gonna make an IPL motion.
Second.
Can I get a second? She's,
522.
give her a second to pull the bill. One thing it did was conflict with federal privacy laws. Other thoughts? Senator Reardon, you usually have a thought or two.
I remember this for all the reasons that we ITL'd 195.
Yes,
We're similar
we
here.
just didn't get to it that day.
Right.
We were gonna, didn't have time.
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor of the ITL motion, say aye.
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 Move consent.
Second. All those in favor of the consent motion?
Aye.
Aye. I'll take it out.
Gannon takes it out.
Gannon's taking it out.
What we got left?
Just like Tatum will take it to the hoop. Okay, one more. We're moving on to 381.
Wait, what? 381?
381.
381,
We got the amendment.
Oh.
the one with
had
the
the
amendments.
last 381.
So I-
Move ITL?
I'm gonna make it, I was making it not to pass
Oh,
motion.
did you?
I just-
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I just don't have that voice today. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And so I need to pass it first. No.
The amendment.
Okay, so I'm introducing 1783S. And I need a second.
Second.
Which I got. Brief discussion. I think I talked a lot about it on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry. When I was in the box. Do we call it a box? No, I call it the box right there. But anyways, let's see, go back to the bill. Firearm manufacturers, if they make a product that has a defect, such as a trigger, something's releasing, something's not working on it that a normal gun would, I certainly want that manufacturer to be liable, as they would be under this legislation. But if people start wanting them to have a perfect gun, like in Westworld, for those who saw the movies, it wouldn't shoot at people. It wouldn't do anything wrong. So in an ideal world, you might want a fingerprint mechanism. You might want a release clip, but that isn't what the police want, a gun that they can depend on, as does the military. So they make optional features, and the optional features that you could now buy on some of these guns are like the fingerprint detection thing, a loaded chamber indicator, a magazine disconnect mechanism, an external safety mechanism, but do not order that and then to want to sue the manufacturer after you specifically request certain things or not isn't good. But again, this amendment is not to release a manufacturer from liability if there is a defect that would be generally associated with a gun in working order. This is to say that if you think hypothetically of, it's probably 10 other things that you could think of that someone in a different state might say, that should be a mandatory feature. I guess in a car, it should have a mandatory feature that it won't hit people. But it wouldn't be cost effective. It isn't what we want. And so people making a good product should feel safe in knowing that when they make a good product in New Hampshire, they're not going to be liable for non-defects. Other thoughts?
Yes.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you. I think one of the basic tenets of tort liability, one of the first things that you learn in law school, is that you always have strict liability when the product is inherently dangerous. And guns, like TNT and fireworks and things like that, are inherently dangerous. And I am having a hard time here reconciling paragraph 1, where it says, in a product liability action, the manufacturer shall not be liable under tort on the theory of defective product design for the things listed on A through D. And then in the following paragraph, it's saying.
I'm sorry, you're in the main bill. I just got to it. I'm sorry.
Okay, so starting on line 10.
Okay, on the bill.
On the amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On the
Thank you.
amendment, sorry.
Thank
Yep, that would be really confusing if it was not. Yep, I get it. So starting on line 10, in a product liability action, the manufacturer is absolved of any strict liability for any of those things listed in A through D, so lines 14 through 17. Immediately following that, in the next paragraph, it says, nothing in this section shall be construed to limit the liability in cases where the claimant establishes that the firearm contained an actual defect. So the very idea of having a tort trial is to determine just those things. So I don't know how you absolve somebody in Roman numeral 1, paragraph 10, and then in Roman numeral 2, line 19, I should have said line 10 just a minute ago, saying you can go prove it if there is actually a defect. That's exactly why we have trials, to put all of that evidence on in front of a judge or a jury and for the trier of fact to make those determinations. So I think the bill's inconsistent between those two, Roman 1 and Roman 2, and I'm definitely against an inherently dangerous product getting a complete absolution from any tort liability.
So I see a difference, to me anyways. I see a difference in an actual manufacturing defect. They didn't bore the cylinder right and it blows up in your face. That would be, to me, a clear defect, as opposed to not having fingerprints technology on the gun. That would be an optional thing. And for you to say when someone else picks up the gun and uses it, oh, if only it had that. So we're going to sue you under a defective product. Totally different thing. So I see the difference between the A, B, C, and D and the actual. I see a whole difference with an actual defect of structurally there's something wrong with the gun. Design-wise, they did something that after so many uses, something fails. Those to me are product defects. These are choices that could be made on what you want on your gun. And I just don't see it that way.
And I would just state that those 4 choices that you could make of any of those options on a gun,
Yep.
there could be a defect in one of those.
Well, if there was a structural defect, then they would, the idea is the structural defect, then if they had made something wrong on a gun that ordered a fingerprint technology and the technology didn't work, then you'd have a cause of action.
Right. But would you ever get to court if in Roman numeral 1,
Well, I think you would
section-
because there'd be an actual manufacturing defect that you could point to then.
So why wouldn't everybody assert that and go to trial to find that out? I don't see where paragraph 1 gets you anything. If paragraph 2 says, if you're going to purport or allege that there's a defect, you'd go to trial on any of those things.
The things above, if you were missing this technology or this device, an external pivoting trigger safety, that's a design thing that, so you ordered the gun that way because you wanted to put it on, and then you're going to say, oh, it's defective because, anyways, I don't see any problem with this because I see any actual defect is getting addressed. The fact that you didn't order a chamber indicator was your discretion, not a defect. And then you're going to sue because you made a bad choice or something that you want later. I don't see that as defective.
Okay.
But okay. Yes, I'm sorry, Senator, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, a couple things. You just said a couple of minutes ago that people who make a good product in New Hampshire should feel free to continue producing without the fear of being sued. But we're not applying this to any of the products that are made in New Hampshire. We're only applying it to one product. And of those products, only one of those manufacturers came forward. So are you suggesting that we should possibly amend this to include more products or any products that are made specifically in New Hampshire?
I brought forth the amendment because I'm aware of this one situation. So I try to narrowly tailor anything I do. So I only did this one thing for this one cause of action that I'm aware of. If you want to broaden the bill, I guess.
This one cause of action is, I don't know, it seems inappropriate that the legislature would insert itself into a particular manufacturer's legal struggles right now. Like they have a number of pending cases, and this is looking to interrupt or possibly silence any more people coming forward. And the one manufacturer that came forward has a product that was documented to have problems. They subsequently used the documentation provided them from the Department of Defense to change said product to meet the standards of the Department of Defense. But they also had a backstock of products that they had made prior to the changes that the Department of Defense asked for, and they used their Department of Defense contract to sell that product, but they sold the defective products prior. And those products went out to municipal law enforcement agencies, and now we have lawsuits across the country from municipal law enforcement officers who were hurt by this product. And they also, instead of reaching out to their customers, it had to be word of mouth on social media sites that they were offering a retrofit if you had the product that was produced prior to the Department of Defense contract. And yes, you can send it back and have it fixed, but they didn't get that information out there, and it's buried 3-4 clicks deep on their website. So why are we inserting ourselves into a lawsuit, essentially, that this manufacturer is embroiled in across the country, and giving them product immunity, basically, when we know that they had an issue with their product, and now we're coming in and saying, no, don't worry about it. If you do that again, if something else happens like that, we got you covered. Like, why would we want to cover somebody before when we know they've already messed up?
Well, I don't know that they've already messed up. As far as I know, in any of the cases that they've went to court on, they've been found, they've never been able to repeat an incident of why the gun discharged. There were no proof that there was it's an alleged defect that you're saying. There is no proof of an actual defect. And again, I feel if there is an actual defect in any way in the guns that they're making, I want them to stay here. I want them to enjoy that we're a safe harbor to work at. But if they make a bad gun, we're going to go after them on the product defect. But if you think of the 40 to 80 different things that you could think of that a gun could have, and then say, oh, it's your fault you didn't put it on the gun when I could have ordered the gun. The police want to be able to discharge a firearm quickly and safely. If you add more safety mechanisms, the odds of them being able to use the gun in a timely manner go down. If you have a magazine disconnect mechanism that won't leave one bullet in the chamber, the police usually want one bullet in case they're tussling, they get in a fight with someone, they usually want one bullet in the chamber to use. If that gun can't be used in the way they want, and that's the way most guns are made around the country, I don't see that there's a problem. If they're making a specific thing with a specific defect, they are still going to be liable. So I don't think we're giving them a pass out of anything. I think they're going to be responsible for actual defects. It's just not going to be, okay, anything you can think of that could happen, we're going to let you sue here for. If they're making a gun, it's considered, it's working, proper order, there's no defect, then they shouldn't be fearing lawsuits in New Hampshire. Yes, Senator.
Thank you, my fellow senators. I'm going to concur with the opinion of the chairman, and I want to broaden the conversation just a little. You're talking about military and police. A lot of individuals, myself and others, own a pistol, this type of gun for personal protection and to protect my family. There are, having been in this use of these types of guns for a long period of time and trained on the guns that I have, and having trained at a Sig Sauer facility many, many times, there are things here of these 4 items that probably at least 3, if not 4, I don't want on my own personal pistol. So I see this clearly as Section 1 saying any product that lists these items by having them not included on that pistol, they should not be liable for, no one should be able to bring case against them. If there's something wrong, and I haven't seen too many guns that fire by themselves, but if someone ever proves that case, then you have action to go forward. But They are a good manufacturer. They are a manufacturer in our state. I think anyone's free to bring legislation forward, good or bad, for a product. And I'm going to stand behind it because, quite honestly, if I don't have these things on my pistol and I chose to buy that pistol, I have no right to come back against the manufacturer. I'm going to stand with the chair.
Are we okay to move on or doing it?
I'm good.
Sure, go ahead.
Just want to clarify and that we're singling out, we're picking a winner, and we are singling out one industry to have favorable legislation for over all other New Hampshire made products. And I certainly hope that Senator McConkey, that if you bought your pistol prior to the Department of Defense contract, that you take advantage of the retrofit offered by Sig Sauer, because it is a defective piece of machinery.
Okay, my only final thoughts, I don't think it's a defective piece of machinery. It hasn't been shown that in a court. It has been brought suit, never been able to be shown.
They're giving free retrofits if you bring it back, and they're not doing a recall because they don't want to admit liability. And also, Mr. Cox testified that they are not even considering, in fact, they're leaving the state of New Hampshire. So that is, we should take that threat of, like, we don't want to have them leave off the table because they're not going anywhere.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of the, hold on a second. I'm on the amendment, yep. All in favor of ought to pass on the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
3-2, I'll take it out.
Ought to pass as amended.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Move on the ought to pass as amended on the bill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. What? He did, I'm sorry. And nays?
No.
3-2.
Consent?
No.
Ladies.
That was great.
But I love your optimism.
Yeah, nice try.
Where did I leave off? Did we vote on it? We did, 3-2. I'll take it up. Okay, that's all we're doing. Yay, thank you, folks.
Move to go out of executive
Motion to come out, seconded by McConkey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was a lovely day.
Are they playing tonight?
What time? Tonight or right now?
What time?
I might not even be up.